Everybody, welcome. Joining me, Smitty, involved in the most controversial hand of the Gladiator, the most controversial hand of the 2024 World Series. This is Papa Poker, Jason Patton. Smitty, thanks for joining us. And before we roll into all the details, can you at a high level tell us what happened as we were getting down to the final players in this crazy hand?
Yeah, Jason, Papa Poker, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. So I had 4.5 million chips, 4.525. To be exact, blinds were 500K, 1 million big blind ante. I was UTG, had looked down at Jack 5 suited. I said if it's any two cards combination that were suited, connected, if I saw a face card, I was shoving. And not a GTO guy. Know for a fact I made the right shove. And it gets around to the button. Steve, I think his last name's Foudy, good player. He requests account from the dealer, 4.525. She confirms. He makes it 10 million. Small blind Caleb gets out of the way, so folds his 500K option. And it gets to Men on the big blind. And Men looks down at his cards, smiles, and shoves all in. And Steve asks for a count. Men says, I don't care how much it is. I tell Eddie in the 9 seat, I said, I bet they both have ace king. and as Steve calls, rolls over their ace king. Men shows his ace king. I said, told you so. And that's, I think that's when the video starts recording. So I'm in like the best possible shape, right? I've got 2 live cards, an opportunity to more than triple up.
And their aces block the other aces, and their kings block the other kings.
Exactly.
It's a great setup, yeah.
Feel good. They have hearts and diamonds, I have spades. So fully live on my suits, like nothing blocked. On the top end of the flushes. So really great spot. Flop comes, bricks. The turn card was really interesting. It was I think it was the 2 of hearts, which gave Steve a flush draw. So he was free rolling Men. It gave me a gutter vault.
10 of hearts, 6 of clubs, 4 of spades, and then 2 of hearts comes on the turn.
So I have 7 outs, right? I have non-heart, Jack 5. So 4 outs there, and then 3 outs in a non-heart 3 for a straight. And of course, the 5 of clubs comes on the river. And I'm elated, who wouldn't be? The reason why I'm so excited is because there was a bust out in the same hand right behind me. Heard it. And that was for a pay jump. So I just hit a 7 outer on the river for what was effectively like a 5K pay jump, which is not insignificant. And of course, keeps me in the tournament with which I know is 15 big blinds, tripled up, more than tripled up. And I have a new lease on life. So I go to my rail. I had, a bunch of people who were sweating and, do some high fives. I had just ordered, this is a misconception as well. I just ordered my first beer. I call them Run It Up Ronas, or Run It Up Corona, right? I like to drink. I'm from Georgia, and I don't mind drinking late in play. I don't drink when I play cash games or anything like that, unless it's fairly low stakes. I take poker pretty seriously, but I'm also really fun to have at the table and don't mind a cocktail or 2 late in the day. So I ordered this Run It Up Rona. I'm thinking like superstitiously, this is good luck. It just came, like literally just had my first beer, call for cocktails, go to the rail, think the pot's being, sorted out. I notice the floor, replace me in my seat because Paul said, excuse me. And he's counting my chips and he validates the 4.525, Paul, the floor guy. And come back to my chair. And as the chips are being pushed to me by the dealer, she pushes me 10.5 million. And I, eyeballing it, see that the stack is incorrect and immediately call floor and say, this is wrong. And the dealer says, yeah, that looks a little short. And I said, I had 4.525 times 3 is 13.575. And then $1.5 million. I should have over 15 million, 15,075,000. I'm short 4.5 million. And so they call the floor. The floor simultaneously calls for the 3-table redraw because we're down to 27 because of the
And
bust down on the other
no
table.
hands have happened
Nothing
between
has happened.
this hand and the
This hand.
redraw. Okay.
That's it. And that's what I think people thought maybe I played a hand, and we can get to all of that, but that was the dynamics of the hand based on your question, Jason. So I'll pause there.
Ace king, ace king. Come on, baby! I knew it was ace king, ace king. Here it goes, jack 5 right here. 5. Oh, back door. Back door. 3, jack 5. Let's go, man! Let's go!
Bingo! What do you gotta say to people, bro?
Bingo, bango. Tony Cocktail Table 92!
I'd love to hear a little bit about your history in poker. How long have you been playing poker? And then we'll get into a little bit about your World Series in 2024. But how long have you been playing poker?
Yeah, so when the story goes, when my mom was pregnant with me, I was their first child, and they found out they were having a boy, a son. My dad would say, pair beats high card, 2 pair beats pair, 3 of a kind beats 2 pair, so on and so forth. My dad loved playing 7-card stud. He was a college athlete, and well, kind of like Mikey McDermott would just turn that truck around on the turnpike in northern New Jersey and go down to, the casinos and play 7-card stud. And that's how he helped pay his way through college and taught me very young. Online poker, it was pre-Chris Moneymaker when I was in college, and I took it to the online streets fairly young. I think I was about 18 years old when I started playing online. That was 2002. Played online and live all throughout college, even studied abroad in Australia, and ended up playing full-time while living there, which was actually how I got introduced to Omaha. I was playing probably 6 days a week. Started off playing 5-10 limit there. I was playing limit online, limit hold'em, and then played limit 5-10, moved up in stakes pretty quickly to 10-20, and then was invited into a fairly sizable game. At the time, it was a 5-10 round of no limit hold'em, round of pot limit Omaha. And I had never really played Omaha before. I knew the dynamics, and I'd read about it. So I bought a book. I think I bought one of Helmuth's, Phil's books.
Okay.
And started reading about just the various games. And that's actually how I got really interested in Omaha and mixed games. And no one knew how to play Omaha at the time. And I just kind of started crushing Omaha and transitioned from a full-on no limit hold'em player to a full-on pot limit Omaha player. And could probably tell you that the amount of times that I've played hold'em since 2004, it was just like friends games. Like I'd play it so infrequently. If Omaha was offered at, pretty much any limit, any stake, any variant, I love 08. I love limit 08. When I was living in New York City for a while, after I transitioned from poker, I'd be in Atlantic City almost every weekend playing in the 10-20 full kill, 8 or better game at the Borgata. So just a full-on Omaha grinder, part-time player at this point, but just always have had a love for the 4-card streets.
And then does Omaha bring you to the World Series? How many different times have you been to the World Series? What is your normal World Series routine?
Yeah, so for the I've been going to the World Series since I think it was like 2005, I want to say, was my first summer out there. And I just, went for a few days and have kind of crept my way back every year. My World Series typically was cash games. There weren't the volume of Omaha tournaments that they have now. So I never really cared to play tournaments. I'd fire I remember the days when you got like 3x chips and you'd play like a $1,500 buy-in, which was the minimum. You'd get 4,500 chips. You'd run it up to 19K and you think you had like the biggest stack in the room, and then, it was all over. And I just hated tournaments. I didn't have the patience for like 2 and 3 day grinds, Jason. And so I played tournaments really infrequently. I would just go out for cash games and go out to hang out with friends, and it's summer camp to me, right? And as the years went on, and my career became more important to me, and poker took more of a back seat. It was really just about camaraderie of being out there in the summers, and less about the poker, to be completely honest with you. As the pandemic took place, that's when I really started getting into studying tournaments and studying Omaha tournaments specifically, and MTT, Omaha play, and just put a lot of emphasis on tournament poker and wanting to win championships, because I can play cash games, 5, 6, 7 days a week if I wanted to. If I'm going to have the opportunities to play my, 6 to 10 tournaments a year, it's going to be in the summer at the World Series.
Sure. And for this World Series now, when did you come out? When did you depart? Because I think there's some departure entertainment as part of this story too. And when after we talk about that, I'd love to know, did you enter different flights of the Gladiator, or what was your sort of Gladiator enter strategy too?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I came out the 5th of June, and that was the morning of the 1500 PLO that Dylan Weissman shipped. Way to go, Dylan. I'm a big fan of Dylan's, watch a lot of his content, subscribe to Upswing. I guess that's like a little shout out to those dudes. So I got there the 5th. I was supposed to leave the 15th. I was going to play the 1500. The next day was a Venetian 1100 bounty. I was going to take a day off Friday in full and just kind of rest and relax. Saturday night was an 1100 PLO 5 card at the Wynn. It was like a turbo that led into the Sunday Big O 1500. Monday was the PLO No Limit 600 World Series Deep Stack, and then Tuesday was the PLO 600 Deep Stack, which I ran super deep in last year. I came in like 30th out of 3,300. So I wanted to play that again. And you notice that, right, Jason? I didn't say the Gladiator at all.
Yes.
So it was Friday morning. I had busted out of the 1100 PLO bounty at Venetian around like 8 o'clock. I had collected a few bounties. I busted in a chip leader pot with like 70% equity 3 ways, which is insane in Omaha to have that much equity, where equities run pretty thin in a 3-handed pot. Lost it, no big deal, and said, you know what, I'm not really pokered out. And I went, and a buddy of mine came out, and it was his first World Series. He's been like, I offer a package to my golf buddies back home and just like try to get them involved and get a little entertainment in. And it's fun for me, right? I like you, I write, blogs for them. Like I write emails every morning. It helps me like track hand histories, and I find it actually betters my play. And they love it. So this is a guy who's been sweating me for over a decade, and he wanted to come out, and he was like, I'm going to play this Gladiator. And I knew it existed, but it was a Hold'em event. I knew it was a deep field. And I looked online and I was like, holy crap, the guy who won this thing last year won $500,000. Like, I'm not incompetent in Hold'em. Like, I'm still probably a decent Hold'em player. I mean, stack me up against guys that are all sitting in that reg line in the gold line, and they're all talking about how it's like their first or their second event. They're so excited. And I was like, I play with a bunch of misregs in these Omaha and these 08 tournaments. Like, let's just like go back to having fun. And I get down to my first table, and that's exactly what it was. I probably brought the average age down by about 30 years, and I'm 40 years old.
And you and your buddy registered then at the same time?
Yeah, I ended up registering with him. He didn't have a Bravo account or anything like that, so I just funded. I just ripped the ticket out, and it was.
And was this
Friday,
what day? Was this Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
That was Friday. So that was flight B, I think. Right? Yeah. So that was flight B. So my buddy busted actually Thursday. I ran into another friend from LA, who I've known for years, David Rich, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna play it." And I said, "You know what? Screw it. I'm too. Like, whatever." I was either gonna sit at the pool all day and read, or just, head on out and fire. I said,
And
let's
you're
play poker.
firing at the start of the day, or did you guys come in a
Start
little
of the
late?
day, like
Okay.
right when Reg opens. I think it was like 10:05 maybe. And so I get to my table and it's perfect. It's just everything that I wanted. It was guys who were excited. They had poker shirts on and poker hats, and there wasn't anyone with like big headphones and sunglasses. And I just like, it made me feel kind of like back in the old days when I was like really excited to come out for my first time. And I ran up a stack, and that first day I made the money. I had probably like 40 or 50 BBs going on dinner break, and um, money bursted right after that. And I lost in level 21. They played 22 levels, something like that. I made a few good calls and just hands didn't hold up against short stacks. Then I got short and that was it. So I was like, that was the most fun I've had in so long. And I went pretty deep, like, there's going to be 500K up top. Like, screw it. Let's just do it again tomorrow. And if it doesn't work out, I'll play the PLO5 card at win at 6 o'clock.
You've
It's,
caught the gladiator bug,
I
just
caught the
just
bug.
yeah.
It's crazy. I caught the bug in like the biggest minefield event of the summer. So I fire again. And again, I have such a great table with the nicest people, and I'm making friends. I'm sitting next to this guy, Mark Johnson, who ended up going to college at the same time that I did at Indiana University, played on the basketball team in our national championship run in 2002. I'm like, ooh and an and meeting such nice fellows, and he gets replaced, he loses by Ryan DePaulo, who sits down for like 5 seconds, and it couldn't have had better scenarios. And I want to talk a little bit about the charity that I donate my winnings to from poker, or a portion of my winnings to. And people were asking me about the charity, and because I wear the hat for Charlie's Army, and just people saying they were going to make donations. Like, you don't get that in events or the games and the stakes that I play. And it just felt good, and it kept me focused, and I was playing really well. I was running really well. I was just getting in great spots. And all of a sudden I've got a mountain of chips again the next day, and I bagged 1.535, good for 70th out of 754 out of 20,500 something people. And that was Flight C. I ended up
And
playing
that's
big.
where you outlasted me. So I fired
Okay.
a few times in Flight C. I came back in Flight D and also fired, and it was one of the roughest events for me. And a lot of us watching, participate in this Gladiator. It is that sort of very entry level. Everybody can play. I mean, at the end, it looks like in the early flights had less entries. 20,647 entries. And we're talking about you making it to the, and almost twice, to the final 30 of, 20 some thousand people, which is just fantastic. But yeah, let's keep going with how everything went.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it was cruise control. I definitely had some great spots. I got a little bit lucky late in the day on day one for a decent sized pot, where I eliminated probably the most capable player I played across the 2 days. And yeah, I started off, this is funny, Jason. I started off my second flight, and I was at table black 69 was the table number. And I played 6-9 of spades and clubs like it was aces. I think I 4-bet it pre-flop one time and got showed queens. And then I ended up like in this insane all-in spot against ace king and flop like the world and open-ended straight flush draw. And actually bricked it out, had too many outs. But I was just like having so much fun. It was so entertaining. So have this big stack coming into day two. And I have a buddy of mine seated directly on my right, who was by far the most, he had the most results at anyone at the table. He's got about 900K in career earnings, my friend Giuliani. And he, it was just nice having someone that was friendly that I could talk to at the table. And I get really friendly at the table. Now, I get really friendly, but I will also absolutely stare into your soul because I'm a live poker player. I pride myself on live reads and live tells. And I actually along the way picked up a lot on a few of the players that I was playing with, and I think that that really helped me navigate as deep as I did. And it also was nice getting to the first break with 4.8 million. I called off a pretty massive spot right before the first break against a European pro, and then ran it up to 13.5 million and was probably first or second in chips going into our second break in the day. I was playing extremely aggressively. I'd got into a spot where I 2.5x the button with 3-4 hearts, 7 big blind stacks, shipped all in with ace jack, and I had to call it off. And that helped me get paid in like so many different spots where I just woke up with like queens or ace king and just end up holding against other big stacks. So I just, I got to 13.5, and things were pretty smooth sailing. And then I lost 3 flips back to back to back, cut me down to 5 million, probably at like, what were we at? Maybe like 300K BB. Dan Heimler came to the table immediately into the big blind with about 1.75 million chips, if I recall correctly. So 252, yeah, maybe 300. And I opened queen jack diamonds cut off, Dan flats, flop ace 9, 6, 2 diamonds. He checks, I shove, he tanks for like 4 minutes and calls with queen 9 off. It holds. So I'm like knocked down, I'm short. I get lucky in a 3-way spot. I have ace 10 of clubs on the button. Hijack opens, 2x I ship, big blind calls, original razor, tank calls. And they both have ace queen against my ace 10. I spike a 10. I can back up to 11. Like it was super swingy. And I stayed at 11 forever, like winning 1 pot in orbit, just like,
Stay alive, yeah.
but just alive, right? We're at like a million chips. And I remember I was in the big blind, I had king jack off, flop came, ace high, I called a raise, I folded. And I got moved. To my new table, which was the table that you saw me at with the videos, with about, I think it was 28 left on the table balance.
And have you ever played with Men Nguyen before? Were you aware of him before?
Yeah, great question. Yes, many times at Borgata, and also 2 summers ago, we ran super deep together in the mixed Omaha event, and I was at his table for probably 4 or 5 hours. We were joking as well. Like, I don't respect his antics, but I treat everyone fairly at the poker table, treat everyone as an equal. And, we were having some laughs and about calling him the master, and him saying, he wants to drop the master. And I was like, yeah, you're the master beer drinker and stuff like that. Definitely not a master poker player, because you're luck boxing your way to get this far. And, had the table laughing and stuff. And
Sure.
we were just having a good time. And, so I get moved to this new table, Jason, and I'm in the big blind. And so I get cut down the size. And then that next orbit comes around, and all of a sudden that's where I'm like stuck down with 4.5 bigs. And I've got to shove that jack 5 suited. So I was only at that new table for a little while, but Men and I had played together at another table earlier in the day where we just were both part of a shakeup.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I actually, my first WSOP cash, which was a couple of years ago, a $500 freeze out, I ended up at this table and people were joking with this guy and talking about drinking beer. And they seemed to be like saying he was a recognized poker player, and I didn't recognize who he was. So I'm like Googling, poker, beer, who is this? And it turned out it was Men. He was super nice to me, took a picture with me after, even though I didn't realize who he was till Googling him. But then, of course, you sort of, as we get into some of this, hear about some of the things that Men has done. But obviously, a very talented poker player as well, with, some questionable comments that everybody's got here. So thanks for walking us through how you sort of got cut down and were in the situation where you had to shove. You talked at the top about the hand. Let's have me play the sort of, the video that sort of recaps right after you sort of win this hand and you celebrate. And then let's show maybe after the video, let's talk about your reaction. It seemed like you were very excited about hitting this Jack 5.
Thirsty. Had to get two. Ace king, ace king. Come on, baby! I knew it was ace king, ace king. Here it comes, Jack 5 right here. 5. Oh, back door. Back door. 3, Jack 5. Let's go, man! Let's go!
Bingo. What do you got to say to people, bro?
Bingo bango. Tony cocktail table 92. Paul, you got to appreciate that one. You wanted someone to say that to you.
Can you help her count this, please? I think you're off by 100,000. There you go. 45 points.
Mac, I didn't even sweat with the lady.
4.525.
Let's go. I got the 5. I knew that 5 was coming, boys.
Good shit. It was coming the whole way.
Let's go, boy. Paul, you got to appreciate that one. You wanted someone to say that to you.
Figure it out. 2 big blinds is a big deal here.
That's 4 big blinds. Whatever it is, it's 4 big blinds.
It doesn't matter.
4.5.
It's relative. That is?
And he's sitting here saying he watched. It's like, are you kidding me?
Nah, you gotta.
They have it on video.
The reaction is multifold, right? I mean, it's definitely not beer oriented. I had like full beer, maybe I'd like taken 2 sips. I just gotten my first beer, so I promise I'm not a one sip drunk. But man, I saw that 5 and I was so excited. I was so happy. Like you said, Jason, we're down to 27 people of 20,000 something, and you just have to pinch yourself in that moment. And I'm sure that there are players like that are stoic and don't really show a whole lot of energy. And someone tweeted something and it really hit home to me. And I think about this a lot actually after the fact. And they said the poker community ragged on the guy who was emotionless after pulling the $1 million bounty in the Mystery Millions. And you got all over that guy. And then you get all over a guy who celebrates after winning a hand in a spot, which secured a pay jump, which meant more money for a charity he supports, which meant, a better chance at, winning a bracelet, which meant, more diapers for his son back home. Like you gotta put yourself in the shoes of someone that's not doing this for a living anymore and who's just there to have the absolute blast, who wasn't even supposed to be in this tournament, wasn't even on the schedule. So to be there and like being that deep in a hold'em event was just, it's like your dream when you get into poker whenever you first started. And I was like, it just took me 20 years to get to a spot like this. And I let that moment excite me because with 15 bigs and how locked in I was, I thought for the first time, even though I was chip leader with 100 left, that was the first time I said I could win this.
And there have been some comments online, if you weren't celebrating, maybe you would have tracked this. And obviously it's a challenging environment. The World Series of Poker, when you have 20,000 entries, finding enough dealers, finding enough floor people to manage this mad respect to what the World Series of Poker does. But you do have new dealers, new people dealing with all these situations. And you come back to the table and you seem to notice right away, hey, something's amiss.
Yeah, and I think that that's the misconception that I do want to get out there. So first off, to the dealers, to the floor, you have the hardest freaking job on the planet. I would never want to be in that box. There's so much pressure on those folks. They're dealing with hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, pardon me, every single day. they're, constantly being watched by 9 or 10 players at a table. The floor has to do the job of, they literally had to, because we're in the back of Horseshoe, they had to like barricade the rail because there were a lot of people watching. They had to use chairs from broken tables to just block the areas. And I have mad respect for the dealers and for the floor staff and every single person involved in operating a massive series like the World Series of Poker. I want to get that out there. I also want to get it out there that I realized it immediately. Not another second went on. Not another hand was played. Nothing was dealt. Not even the high card for the 3-table draw. I got back to my seat as the dealer was pushing the chips to me, and I noticed that it was short, and I immediately called floor. The floor came over and said, I counted, which I saw. Paul was there. You see him in the video counting my chips. And that's when I started begging and pleading. And where the video cuts is me literally like at the top of my lungs saying, Paul, please come back here. You have to talk to me. You have to stop this clock. And 25 of the 27 other players were all saying, stop the clock immediately. You have to get this right. This is too big of a spot. So kudos to every single one of those players that was left who said, stop the clock, because that they finally did. They were going to just go forward with the 3-table redraw and just keep on going. That's when it gets really gray. And that's where there's not a lot of reported information. And I'm grateful for you to have me to share my story, because we get down to the 3-table draw. They proceed with the 3-table draw, while they're reviewing tape. Okay, this is good.
And they're reviewing tape. So why don't we play really quick some of the tape of what is seen behind or while you're celebrating and happens at the table.
Perfect.
You figure it out. Two big blinds is a big deal here.
That's 4 big blinds. Whatever it is, it's 4 big blinds.
It doesn't matter.
4.5.
It's relative. That is?
And he's sitting here saying he watched. It's like, are you kidding me?
Nah, you gotta.
They have it on video.
And maybe you could talk us through some of that video and then some of what happened in this gray time, Smitty.
Yeah. So, they pause the clock, they go and they start reviewing this tape. And I guess Paul is on the phone with, I suppose, people upstairs, eye in the sky. And 15 minutes in probably real time go on. And he says, all right, everyone, to your newly assigned seats, we are going to start the clock and resume the tournament. 27 players left. And I go up to Paul and I said, Paul, what do I do? And he goes, Mr. Smith, you're to take your 10.525 million and play. And I was flabbergasted. And if my mind was in the gutter beforehand, it was really in the gutter now. But now the other players have questions. So now they're saying, what happens if we bust Smitty? Do we get 10.525? Do we get 15 million? What if Smitty covers us with 15 million, but not 10? There were so many questions, and Paul says, Mr. Smith is to play his stack as is. Whatever happens from this point forward happens. And I did my best to stay calm. Kudos to Mac, a longtime dealer who I've known for a while, and he was luckily in the box, and he was like, Smitty, just stay calm, man. Like, I don't want to see you get a penalty. I looked down at ace-7 of hearts. Luckily, I was on the button. I was in the 6th seed. The button was in the 6th seed after the draw for button. And I tanked for probably 5 minutes.
And how many big blinds are you in this weird situation now?
10.5 at this point.
Okay.
And this guy, Simon, who ended up coming in second, who I'd become close with because we both went to Indiana University. He had an IU shirt on, and young guy, really respect him, plays great. He was like, Smitty, man, like, I'm super short. Blinds are getting really big. Like, I know I feel so bad for you, and everyone at the table feels so bad for you, but like, we've got to play poker, man. Like, we can't just let the other tables, get above us, and then we're just stuck here waiting. And I said, out of respect to the other players, out of respect to the fact that I hold myself to a standard that, I'm respectful to others, and I do understand what you're going through. I'll play my stack as is. And I played poker from that point forward. Whether I should have or shouldn't have, based on what had happened, that's to be, that's for you to decide. But for me, for the players, and out of the respect that I have for the game, I proceeded to play. 5 minutes later, I was given 2 million chips. I was given 1 million from Men and 1 million from Steve. And the 1 million from Steve makes no sense because Steve cut out his 4.525, and it's complete bull crap that they had taken 1 million. And what really incensed me was the fact that it's the World Series knowing something was wrong. Like, we know you were shorted. Like, we just can't figure out how. And even though it's simple math, this is what we're going to do. I almost, Jason, would have rather than done nothing. It would have probably helped me.
At this point, did you have any idea, we'd see this video where Men is bringing back chips, that Men was involved? Like, you just had no idea where your chips went, right, at this point? Or
I knew the exact amount was 4.525. I knew the 4.525 that I did have in my stack was from Steve. And yes, I knew at the time that it was with certainty because I have no reason not to doubt Steve. I have no reason not to doubt the dealer. I knew it was Men.
Yeah. At this point, Men was saying, hey, I don't know. Was he reacting or,
He was the first to get his table draw and leave.
and
Everyone
leave
else
and
at the
just left
table
the
stayed.
situation? Got it.
Men left. Men knew what he was doing.
And it sounds like you kept playing. How long did you keep playing after all this happened and you get this 2 million in chips along the way?
Yeah, I lasted another orbit. I was in the big blind with ace nine of clubs, Simon raised, cutoff. Flop came ace, king 10, no suit, rainbow. I check, side bet like 1.2, I want to say. And I just really felt that if I were locked in, like I feel like I was beat. It just something felt weird about the sizing. I continued with top pair. I didn't like it. Was trying to, think about hand combinations that Cy could be raising with based on his stack size. And I just didn't like the spot. And I called and we see a turn and the turn was inconsequential. It was like a 5 or a 6. And Cy overbets the pot. He bets like 5.5, which recounting is a buddy move. It's like, bro, fold your hand, get the hell out of here. It's also like I've got a really strong hand and want to get all queens and jacks out to get away from a draw. And I'm like committed to the fact that Cy's doing this with king queen or king jack or something like that. Or the absolute stone nuts. Think he could do that with sets. I block aces, but tens and kings could be perfectly viable there. I don't think he makes that play with queens or jacks. I think he respects my game, and I just in the moment was not thinking clearly, and it was very difficult to. And I jam over the top for 9.5 million, and Cy was like, Smitty, no, and slams his chips down into the middle, and he has pocket tens, and I was drawn to. And that was the end of my Gladiator. I definitely call that spot 100 out of 100 pre-flop. And I think I get away from it 99 out of 100 in that spot if my head's in the right place. And I can keep my 13, 14 bigs, which wasn't that short of average at the time. And I just play another hand. And that was it.
Obviously, all very dramatic, and any little thing can throw you off. It's also late at night,
Yeah.
things are happening. How did you wrap up your Gladiator? How did you get home? And then I'd love to talk about sort of the video being posted and some of the social media aspect, but talk to us about, the end of your days in Vegas, the end of your days of that tournament.
Yeah, so I shook the night tournament director's hand. I said, thank you for everything. Thank you for, doing what you do. Sorry it worked out this way. And I'm very, very upset about how this all unfolded because simple math is simple math. I collected my payout slip. I went back to my room. I was staying at Vidara and had a drink at the bar and just a glass of wine and just unwind and just not being sad, not being upset. Just how can you be upset making that kind of a run? I could have been dead 2 other times, the 5 on the river, the 10 against ace queen. So, in the end of the day, it's like, what an accomplishment to have a deep run this year in an absolutely crazy field, to have done it again after a deep run in the largest PLO field, live PLO field, was like, that's what, dreams are made of. And I wish it could have gone longer. And I was at the bar when I took it to Twitter and I was like, I just want to get this out there. I hope somebody sees it. And that's the tweet that just exploded. And then I think Poker News had the first story. And then I saw a myriad of pros that were just posting and retweeting the tweet. And I've heard from a lot of massive names in the industry. And I don't know, the tweet has like 115,000 impressions, and PokerOrg has done the story. I've done some interviews. There are a bunch of videos that are going to be circulating on the matter. So I'm glad I took it to Twitter. I think I've tweeted like 5 times in 2024. And it's mostly just stack updates for the guys following and sweating back home that have a piece, but in the golf group. But yeah, man, it was a little bit bittersweet because there is a little bit of a what if. And I deep down also, I just want an apology from the World Series of Poker. I don't need anything else. I have a great life. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I have a great family. I have the best friends. I get to do what I love. I have a great job. And I just think that an apology is maybe all that's warranted at this point, because it could have been handled so much better. What are cameras for if we don't have a system of checks and balances?
And what would you have done? Did you want the chips to come from somewhere? Would you have been okay with just new chips entering? What were some of the things you wish the World Series had done?
I just wish they would have taken 4.525 from men. I think it was clear and obvious. It was an exact amount. And if you can see it on the gentleman who was filming from the sideline, men pulling all of his stack back, even if you give him credit for thinking it's a fully chopped pot, ace, king, not factoring in the other hand that actually won, it should be fairly simplistic, as the floor person literally is seen counting my chips, validates the 4.525, gets the 4.525 from Steve. It wouldn't have been very difficult without another hand being dealt to have asked 4.525 for men and let a known offender who is still allowed to play in these big tournaments to have that argument with the floor, and hopefully would have lost that argument, because we all know where those chips needed to come from at this point.
And when do you head home, and when do you see the video now of men bringing this back into his stack?
So I called Delta that next morning. So I guess that was Monday night. So I called Delta Tuesday morning and I said, what's the next flight that I can get on? And they put me on a flight that afternoon. And I just wanted to leave town. At that point, the tweet hadn't blown up. I'm so happy and thankful that I did leave town, because I think a lot of people would have been talking about it, and I wouldn't have really wanted to get caught up in that. I think it would have been very distracting. I certainly wouldn't have been able to play my best poker. So rather than just dumping off, stacks and, tournaments of, nominal buy-ins, but I just didn't want to play that game. And I wanted to come back and be with my family. I'd made a hell of a run. I was tired, and I decided to come home. And that evening, after the story on Poker News had posted, was the first time I saw the video series, because Poker News had embedded the video clips into their story, and my Twitter started blowing up. And I was exhausted, and I was like, this is so wild. There were follows and requests and replies, and I don't even know the terminology, but my phone every 8 seconds was buzzing, and I had to just shut it off and read it all in the morning. It was like 2:30 Eastern time.
And as some of these different parties react, what was your reaction to some of the reactions? Are there any sort of comments or, other people mentioning situations with men that sort of jump out or that you want to talk about?
Yeah, the Scott Siever, I think was the most prominent because that's what the Poker Org story was about. So thank you, Scott, for speaking up. And, Joseph Chong, Ryan DePaulo said I should get a main event seat for it, which thank you, Ryan, but I'll be celebrating my 40th birthday in Ireland with my father on a golf trip, so I won't be able to play that this year. And the most kind gesture, and I know I don't have to say this, and he didn't do this for this reason, but I'm going to. Chris Moneymaker reached out to me and invited me to play in his main event at his Moneymaker series at MGM on his dime, just to say, I'm so sorry for what happened to you at the World Series, and I want to make this up to you. And it was just the most kind gesture from a guy that we all owe our huge poker boom to. So from the bottom of my heart, Chris, I can't thank you enough, and I can't really put to words how much your text meant to me, and how kind of a gesture that was to somebody who is just such a fan.
And so what has been the poker backer friends of yours reaction to all this going down?
They're like, holy shit, Smitty, you're famous, man. we thought we've just been backing this PLO dude for, a few years and with nominal returns. And now, look at you. It's, it's my 15 seconds, I suppose, in an industry that I love. And I never really wanted anything from other than good friends and good competition. And this is certainly a stain, but it's not going to prevent me from coming back to the World Series and hanging out with great friends. And it creates a storyline for me for the rest of my life when I go back to Vegas every summer and get to interact with new people.
Will you play the Gladiator again?
I think I'm gonna have to, right, Jason? I mean,
There we go.
we'll see. It was my shortest series ever. Maybe since my first summer, when I had no idea what the hell I was doing. But I have an 18-month-old son, Harrison, and a beautiful wife, Stacy. And, I hope that maybe they'll come out next year with me and I'll be able to make an extended trip because I miss them. And, poker is starting to take a back seat in my life as I watch my boy grow up. And, I want to be around for him. So hopefully they can make it out for a little bit next year. And if they can, I'll see you in the Gladiator.
Very cool. Well, we appreciate you walking us through your firsthand experience. I'm sure you've seen the tweets and people commenting. It's been the story of this World Series. Anything with, something like cheating or suspicion or angles obviously always gets a lot of attention. This one seems like it's going to be destined for some of the, top 10 angles of all time videos. So it's sort of exciting. Anything you want to say here as we wrap up?
No, that's it. I just want to thank you, Jason, for reaching out to me and for the time. I want to thank my friends for always supporting me. And if you have a chance, folks who are watching, to check out Charlie's Army organization. It's a fantastic charity. If you have kids, if you know people with kids, I encourage you to check it out. They promote safe sleep in infants and provide a voice for those who don't have a voice of their own. And it's very close charity to my wife and I and all of our friend group here in Georgia. So thank you again for having me and appreciate the time. And we'll see you all next summer.
Very cool, Smitty. We appreciate it. This is Papa Poker. Please like and subscribe. Let's get this video out there. If you have thoughts on Smitty, Man, what went down, please comment below. We'd love to see a little bit more comments as we wrap up this series. But thanks, everybody. Thanks, Smitty. And we'll talk to you all soon.